Hey there, stock explorers.
Hey,
Welcome to the show.
thanks for having me.
Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into foremost clean energy.
Okay.
This is a really interesting company.
Yeah.
I was kind of drawn to it because they have a kind of a wild history.
Yeah.
They've shifted quite dramatically from lithium to uranium.
Yeah, it is interesting because they haven't totally abandoned lithium.
Right.
They're still strategically positioned in Manitoba's lithium lane. Yeah. But their primary focus now is on uranium properties
Yeah.
in the Athabasca Basin.
Okay.
And they're even working with Denison Mines.
Okay.
So major name in uranium.
We've got a company that's really kind of straddling these two, like, hot commodities.
Right.
Lithium, of course, super crucial for batteries, and uranium essential for nuclear power.
Right.
But before we get into the specifics of foremost, I think we need to take a step back
Yeah.
and look at the bigger picture of the uranium market. So what's driving all the buzz around uranium these days?
Well, the demand for carbon-free energy is just skyrocketing,
Yeah.
and that's putting nuclear power back in the spotlight.
Makes sense.
Investors are realizing that uranium is a key player in the clean energy transition,
Yeah.
especially with countries aiming to reduce their reliance on fossil fuels.
Yeah, that makes sense. But isn't nuclear power,
Mm-hmm.
kind of controversial?
Yeah.
I mean, there are still concerns about safety and waste disposal.
Right. Yeah, those are valid concerns, and they've definitely impacted the nuclear industry in the past.
Yeah.
But the landscape is changing.
Yep.
There's a growing recognition that we need all the tools in the toolbox to combat climate change.
Mhm.
And nuclear energy offers a reliable,
Okay.
carbon-free baseload power source.
So it sounds like the demand for uranium is only going to increase.
It seems that way.
But what about the supply side of the equation?
Mm-hmm.
Can production keep up?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the answer is not so simple.
Okay.
The uranium market is facing what's called a structural deficit.
Okay.
Basically, demand is outstripping supply.
Gotcha.
And this has been made worse by a number of factors.
Okay.
For one, fluctuating uranium prices in the past have made investors hesitant to put money into new mines.
So it's kind of a catch-22.
Exactly.
The price needs to be high enough to encourage investment,
Yeah,
but that high price also contributes to the supply shortage.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have other factors like mine closures,
Right.
operational disruptions,
Uh-huh.
which further constrict the supply.
Yeah.
Geopolitical events also play a role.
Okay.
For example, the U.S. limiting uranium imports from Russia and the recent coup in Niger,
Right.
that a major uranium supplier, have sent ripples through the market.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's a perfect storm brewing in the uranium market.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, so we were talking about the demand
Yeah.
for carbon-free energy skyrocketing. And that's kind of pushing the need for
Yeah.
more nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
And, as we've seen this kind of perfect storm
Yeah.
brewing with all these things happening in these uranium-producing countries.
Right.
And then on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned earlier that
Yeah.
we've got this increase in electricity demand.
Yes.
The IEA predicts that demand will rise by,
Right.
I think it was something like 3.4% annually.
Yeah, a staggering 3.4%
Yeah, over the next 3 years.
over the next 3 years.
So
That's a huge jump,
yeah, it's huge.
driven in part by the electrification of everything and the push for decarbonization.
We're talking about electric vehicles.
Yep.
Electric
Yeah.
heating and cooling systems,
Absolutely.
even data centers,
Right.
all requiring
Massive amounts of electricity.
massive amounts of
Yeah.
electricity.
Yes.
And, if our source material here is accurate, it looks like figure 3 from
Yeah.
the uranium market source
Yeah.
indicates that some countries are still very reliant on
Yeah, they are.
fossil fuels.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're serious about meeting these climate goals,
Right.
they're going to have to
They're going to have to embrace cleaner energy sources.
embrace these cleaner energy sources,
And nuclear's right there.
like nuclear.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to foremost clean energy.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they have properties in the Athabasca Basin.
They do.
What makes that region so special?
Well, the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan, Canada,
Okay.
is renowned for its high-grade uranium deposits.
Okay.
It's essentially a geological treasure trove for uranium miners.
So it's a hot spot.
Yeah, a real hotspot.
Okay.
Foremost has secured the rights to explore and potentially develop 10 properties in this region,
Wow.
covering over 330,000 acres.
Okay, and they're not going it alone.
That's right.
They've partnered with Denison Mines.
Yes, they have. A
Okay.
company with decades of experience in the Athabasca Basin.
Yeah, so they've got the location and they've got a solid partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what exactly is Foremost's strategy here? Are they planning to build their own mines and processing facilities?
Yeah. Well, their plans are still evolving,
Okay.
but they're exploring several options,
Uh-huh.
including a direct shipping ore or DSO operation.
Okay.
This means they would extract the ore
Mhm.
and ship it directly to a processing facility
Okay.
without having to build their own expensive processing plants.
So a more streamlined approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a smart move, especially for a junior company like Foremost.
Yeah.
It minimizes their upfront capital expenditures
Makes sense.
and allows them to generate revenue faster.
Okay. And they're targeting the first half of 2026
That's right.
for their DSO operation to be up and running?
They are.
2026, that's ambitious.
It is ambitious,
Exactly.
but if the uranium market really takes off,
Yeah.
as many predict that timing could be perfect,
Yeah.
they'd be hitting the market just as demand is surging.
Okay.
So that's the bet they're making, and it's a calculated one.
So they're not just relying on market trends.
No, they're not.
They've also got some interesting metallurgical test results from their Zorro project.
Yeah.
Now, Zorro, this was initially focused on lithium.
Right? Yes, that's correct.
I thought they shifted their focus to uranium.
They did.
Are they still pursuing lithium?
They're not abandoning lithium entirely.
Okay.
Remember, they're strategically located in Lithium Lane,
Right.
which puts them close to existing lithium resources and processing facilities.
Yeah.
But their primary focus now is uranium.
Okay.
The Zorro project, however,
Yes.
offers valuable insights into their capabilities.
Okay, so let's talk about these Zorro test results.
Right.
What did they find at Zorro, and how does that relate to their uranium ambitions?
Well, the test results from Zorro were quite impressive.
Okay.
They were able to produce a high-grade lithium spodumene concentrate,
Okay.
close to 6% lithium oxide,
Wow.
with a recovery rate of 81.6%
Okay.
in Phase 2 testing.
Okay, so even though they've shifted their focus to uranium, their lithium expertise is still relevant.
Yes, it is.
But how does producing lithium concentrate translate to extracting uranium?
Right.
I mean, aren't those two completely different processes?
Well, while the specific extraction methods differ,
Right.
the underlying principles are similar.
Okay.
It's all about understanding the geological formations,
Mm-hmm.
identifying the target minerals, and
All right.
developing efficient extraction techniques.
So it's more about showcasing their technical expertise
Exactly.
and their ability to operate effectively in the mining industry.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
The Zorro results bolster their credibility
Mm.
and give investors confidence that they can replicate that success with uranium.
Okay, so we've got a company with strategic assets in a hot commodity market,
Yes.
a solid partnership with an industry veteran,
Mhm.
and a proven track record of technical expertise.
They do.
Sounds like they've got a lot going for them.
Yeah, it seems so.
But before we get too carried away, let's take a closer look at their relationship with Denison Mines.
Okay.
How exactly does that partnership work?
Right.
And what does it bring to the table foremost?
Okay, so their partnership with Denison is structured as a 3-phase option agreement.
Okay.
It allows Foremost to progressively earn a larger interest in these Athabasca properties
Okay.
by meeting certain milestones.
Okay.
Think of it as a try before you buy scenario.
Gotcha.
They initially acquired a 20% interest
Okay.
with a slightly lower percentage in the Hatchet Lake property.
So they dip their toes in the water first.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds like a pretty cautious approach.
It is.
What do they need to do to earn a larger stake?
Well, Phase 2 requires a payment of $2 million in cash or shares to Denison
Okay.
and an $8 million investment in exploration activities.
Oh.
If they hit those targets,
Mm-hmm.
their ownership can increase to 51%,
Okay.
with a potential to reach 70%
Ah.
upon fulfilling the final requirements.
Okay, so Denison is essentially guiding them
I'd say that.
through the exploration process.
Yeah.
But what's in it for Denison? Why would they share their expertise and potentially give up a majority stake?
Well, it's a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Okay.
Denison gets to leverage Foremost's resources and manpower
Okay.
to explore these properties more extensively.
Gotcha.
And for Foremost, it's an invaluable opportunity to learn from the best.
Yeah.
Denison has a deep understanding of the Athabasca Basin
Right.
and a proven track record of success in uranium exploration.
It's like having an experienced mentor by your side
Absolutely.
as you navigate a complex and unfamiliar terrain.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But let's be realistic, exploration is a risky business.
It is.
There's no guarantee that they'll find commercially viable uranium deposits.
That's the truth.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
So that's why it's important to look at Foremost's financials
Yes.
and assess their ability to weather those risks.
Exactly.
Speaking of financials, I remember you mentioned something about a going concern disclosure of their financial statements.
Yes.
That sounds a bit ominous.
It can be.
What exactly does that mean?
Okay.
And should investors be worried?
Well, it's understandable to be concerned when you see that phrase.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a death knell for the company.
Okay.
It's basically an auditor's way of flagging
Yeah.
that there's some uncertainty about the company's ability to continue operating in the long term.
So they're saying, hey, just so you know.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
In Foremost case, it's primarily due to their history of losses
All right.
and their need for continued financing.
So they're burning through cash and haven't yet achieved profitability.
That's correct.
That's not uncommon for exploration stage companies.
No, not at all.
Right.
It's pretty typical, actually.
Okay.
They're investing heavily in exploration activities,
Right.
which don't always generate immediate returns.
Right.
They recently raised $10.5 million Canadian
Okay.
through a private placement,
Okay.
which provides them with some breathing room,
Okay.
but they'll likely need to secure additional funding down the road.
That makes sense.
Right.
But how do investors evaluate a company
Right.
that's still in the exploration phase
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't have a revenue stream to speak of?
Right.
What metrics should they be looking at?
That's where things get a bit more nuanced.
Yep.
Traditional valuation methods based on earnings or revenue multiples don't really apply in this scenario. Instead, analysts often focus on metrics like book value,
Okay.
which reflects the net value of the company's assets.
So it's more about assessing the underlying value
Yeah,
of their properties and their potential to generate future cash flows.
exactly.
Okay. And there's some encouraging signs here.
There are.
A report from Zacks Research actually gave Foremost a price target of $6.20 per share
Wow.
based on a book value multiple.
Interesting. That suggests the market might be undervaluing Foremost's assets.
You might be wondering, why focus on book value?
Right.
Well, for companies like Foremost, who are still in the early stages, book value gives us a glimpse of the underlying asset value, separate from market hype.
Right.
The Zacks target suggests the market might be undervaluing Foremost assets.
However, it's important to remember that this is just one analyst's opinion,
Right.
and there are always risks involved in investing in exploration stage companies.
Sure.
It's a classic high risk, high reward scenario.
So we've got this going concern flag,
Yeah.
a reliance on external financing,
Mm-hmm.
and inherent risks associated with exploration.
Right.
But we also have a company with promising assets in a potentially lucrative market.
Yeah.
A strategic partnership with an industry leader
Mm-hmm.
and a price target that suggests upside potential.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag to say the least.
It is.
Earlier you mentioned that Foremost was strategically located in Manitoba's Lithium Lane.
I did?
Now they're primarily focused on uranium.
Right. Yeah.
Do you see that prior focus on lithium as relevant at all?
Their location in Lithium Lane is certainly an interesting aspect of their story. They're in close proximity to Snow Lake Lithium's resources and the Tonko mine, which is a well-established processing facility.
Right.
This gives them access to infrastructure, expertise, and potential synergies that could benefit both their lithium and uranium endeavors.
So it's not just about the minerals themselves,
Often not.
but also about the surrounding ecosystem, the infrastructure, the expertise,
Yep,
the potential for collaboration.
absolutely.
It sounds like Foremost is strategically positioned
They are.
to leverage these advantages.
Yeah, they are in a good spot.
Okay. And their prior focus on lithium, while no longer their primary pursuit,
Right.
has given them valuable experience in mineral exploration and extraction,
Yeah,
which can be applied to their uranium projects as well.
exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
from the uranium market dynamics
Yep.
to Foremost's strategic positioning, their
Yeah.
partnership with Denison, and even a glimpse into their financials.
We did.
But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't touched on yet.
Okay.
Small modular reactors,
Ah, yes, SMRs.
or SMRs.
Yeah.
I keep hearing about SMRs
Mm-hmm.
as a game changer
Right.
for the nuclear industry.
Yeah.
Can you explain what they are
I can try.
and why they're generating so much excitement?
All right, so SMRs represent a new generation of nuclear reactors
Okay.
that are designed to be smaller,
Okay,
more efficient,
got it.
and more flexible than traditional nuclear power plants.
Cool.
Think of them as the nimble younger sibling of those massive centralized power stations we're used to seeing.
Smaller,
Yeah.
more efficient, That sounds promising.
It does.
But how do they actually work?
Right.
And what makes them so different from traditional reactors?
Okay, so traditional nuclear plants are like giant powerhouses
Okay.
built to generate enormous amounts of electricity.
Well.
They require massive infrastructure,
Uh-huh.
billions of dollars in investment, and years, even decades, to construct.
Yeah.
SMRs, on the other hand, are more like modular units,
Okay.
factory assembled, and shipped to the site,
Interesting.
which significantly reduces construction time and costs.
That shorter time frame certainly makes SMRs a more attractive
I
option.
think so.
But how does this translate to Foremost's bottom line?
Well, the rise of SMRs is expected to drive a significant increase in uranium demand,
Okay.
which is good news for companies like Foremost who are
Right.
focused on uranium exploration and production.
Okay, I see the connection.
Yeah.
More SMRs,
More SMRs
and more demand
equal more demand
for uranium.
for uranium, exactly.
But what are the specific advantages of SMRs that are driving their adoption?
Well, they offer several key benefits over traditional nuclear plants.
Okay.
First, their smaller size and modular design make them more affordable to build and quicker to deploy.
Gotcha.
We're talking about a potential construction time of 3 years or less, compared to up to 12 years for traditional plants.
3 years versus 12, that's a huge difference.
It is.
It makes nuclear energy a much more viable option
Yeah, it does.
for countries looking to rapidly decarbonize their energy grids.
Exactly.
Okay.
Second, SMRs offer greater flexibility in terms of siting.
Okay.
They can be located closer to where the power is needed, reducing transmission losses and infrastructure costs.
Makes sense.
They can even be installed at decommissioned fossil fuel plants,
Oh, wow.
making use of existing infrastructure.
That's a clever way to repurpose those sites and minimize environmental impact.
It is.
Okay, what other advantages do they offer?
Third, SMRs incorporate advanced safety features,
Okay.
including passive cooling systems and lower operating pressures.
Okay.
This enhanced safety profile helps address some of the concerns that have historically plagued the nuclear industry.
Gotcha.
And fourth, they have longer refueling cycles,
Okay.
meaning they require less frequent uranium replenishment,
Makes sense.
which reduces costs and risks associated with transportation and handling.
So it's kind of a win-win situation.
Yeah, you could say that.
SMRs offer a cleaner, safer, and more efficient way to generate nuclear power.
Yeah.
And that increased demand for uranium benefits companies like Foremost.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
Right.
The clean energy transition is driving innovation and creating new opportunities across the energy sector. And companies that are strategically positioned, like Foremost, are poised to ride this wave.
Now, earlier we touched on the financial risks
We did.
associated with exploration stage companies.
Yes.
But looking at the bigger picture,
Yeah,
the uranium market seems to be on an upward trajectory,
it does seem that way.
fueled by the demand for clean energy and the rise of SMRs.
Right.
Do you think those positive trends outweigh the inherent risks?
That's the question every investor needs to wrestle with. There's no easy answer. The potential rewards are enticing, but the risks are real.
Right.
It's a classic risk-reward scenario that requires careful consideration and due diligence.
I suppose there's no crystal ball
Yeah.
to tell us how things will play out.
Right.
Okay.
But by understanding the market dynamics,
Yeah.
the company's fundamentals, and the broader trends shaping the energy sector,
Right.
investors can make more informed decisions.
And that's what these deep dives are all about.
Exactly.
Speaking of informed decisions, we delved into Foremost's financials earlier.
We did.
But there's one specific element I want to revisit.
Okay.
That going concern disclosure,
Right.
I think it's worth taking a closer look at what that means for potential investors.
Okay. You're right that disclosure is an important factor to consider.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a red flag raised by the company's auditors,
Right.
indicating that there's uncertainty about Foremost's ability to continue operating as a viable business in the future.
But you also mentioned that this isn't unusual for exploration stage companies.
It's not.
They're often operating at a loss
They are.
while investing heavily in exploration activities.
That's right.
So how should investors interpret this disclosure? Is it a reason to run for the hills?
Right.
Or is it just part of the territory when investing in this type of company?
It's definitely a cause for caution,
Okay.
but not necessarily a deal breaker.
Okay.
Investors need to dig deeper and understand the reasons behind the disclosure. In Foremost's case, their reliance on external financing
Yeah.
and their history of losses are the primary drivers of this uncertainty.
So it's not a death sentence,
No,
but it's a signal to pay close attention to their financial health
absolute.
and their ability to secure the funding they need to advance their projects.
You got it.
Okay.
It's all about assessing the risks
Yeah.
and making informed decisions based on the available information.
Right.
And that brings us back to the importance of these deep dives.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're providing the context, the insights, and the nuanced details that empower you to make those decisions.
Exactly.
Speaking of details, remember those Kimiko tables we mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah?
The ones that show the potential impact of different uranium prices on their business?
Right.
Ah, yes. Those tables provide a fascinating glimpse
Thank you.
into the potential profitability of uranium producers like Foremost
Yeah.
under various market conditions. They essentially outline different scenarios,
Right.
showing how Foremost's earnings could fluctuate
Yeah.
based on the prevailing uranium spot price. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure for uranium investors.
That's a good way to put it.
But let's be realistic.
Yeah.
Predicting commodity prices is notoriously difficult.
It is.
So how should we interpret those tables? Are they just a theoretical exercise?
Right.
Or can they provide valuable insights for investors?
Well, they're definitely useful for understanding the potential upside.
Right.
But we can't take them as gospel.
Yeah.
Uranium market is influenced by so many factors, from geopolitical events to technological advancements, that it's impossible to predict the future with certainty.
So how should investors interpret these tables?
Well, they're more like a sensitivity analysis,
Yeah.
showing us how Foremost's financials could respond to different price scenarios.
Gotcha.
They're not a crystal ball,
Yeah.
but they do highlight the leverage that Foremost has to rising uranium prices.
Okay.
If the market takes off, they're well positioned to benefit significantly.
So it all boils down to risk appetite, doesn't it?
I think it does.
Investors who believe in the long-term prospects of the uranium market and are comfortable with the inherent risks
Yeah.
of exploration stage companies
Right.
might see Foremost as an intriguing opportunity.
It's all about balancing those risks and potential rewards.
Yeah.
And that's where thorough research and due diligence come into play.
Right?
Investors need to look beyond the hype, delve into the financials, assess the management team, and understand the market dynamics before making any investment decisions.
I think we've done a pretty good job of unpacking those elements today, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. We've covered a lot of ground
Yeah.
exploring the nuances of the uranium market, Foremost's strategic positioning,
Right.
their partnership with Denison Mines,
Yeah.
the potential impact of SMRs, and even their intriguing foray into the lithium space with the Zorro project.
We've also examined their financials,
We did.
including that going concern disclosure,
Right.
which is always a red flag for investors.
It is.
But as we've discussed, it's not necessarily a deal breaker for an exploration stage company like Foremost.
That's right.
Okay.
It's a reminder that investing in this sector requires a certain level of risk tolerance and a long-term perspective.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Foremost Clean Energy,
Okay.
let's distill all this information into some key takeaways for our listeners.
All right, let's do it. Firstly, the uranium market is showing signs of resurgence, driven by the growing demand for carbon-free energy and the emergence of SMRs as a viable alternative to traditional nuclear power plants.
Second, Foremost is strategically positioned to capitalize on this trend
Right.
with promising uranium properties in the Athabasca Basin
Yep.
and a strategic partnership with Denison Mines, a seasoned player in the uranium space.
There.
Third, while their financials do raise some concerns,
They do.
particularly that going concern disclosure, they also have a price target that suggests potential upside.
There is that.
And let's not forget their experience in the lithium space,
Yeah, that's an interesting wrinkle.
which adds another layer of intrigue to their story.
It does. It's a complex and evolving narrative,
Yeah.
and there's no easy answer to the question of whether Foremost is a good investment.
Right.
But hopefully our deep dive has provided you with the insights and the tools you need to make that determination for yourselves. We've provided the context, the analysis, and the nuanced details, but ultimately the decision is yours.
Okay. And as always, we encourage you to do your own research.
Absolutely.
Consult with a financial advisor.
Yep.
And make informed decisions that align with your investment goals
Right.
and risk tolerance.
Of course.
Now, before we sign off,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
Something to ponder as they navigate the complex and ever-changing world of investing.
I like it.
A thought that connects back to the broader themes we've explored today.
Okay.
The energy transition, the role of innovation,
Right.
and the importance of critical thinking.
Absolutely.
We talked about uranium, lithium, and the technologies they power.
Yep.
Electric vehicles,
Right.
clean energy grids,
Uh-huh.
a future less reliant on fossil fuels.
Absolutely.
But these are just pieces of a much larger puzzle.
They are.
The clean energy transition is a multifaceted challenge.
I-
It requires a holistic approach.
I agree.
It's not just about investing in the right companies
No.
or adopting the latest technologies.
Bigger than that.
It's about shifting our mindsets,
Yeah.
embracing sustainability, and making conscious choices that align with a cleaner,
Right.
more equitable future.
I like it.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in this transition.
I do.
Whether we're investors,
Yep.
consumers, policymakers, or simply concerned citizens.
Absolutely.
And it's about understanding that the journey towards a sustainable future
Right.
will be filled with challenges and uncertainties, but also with opportunities for innovation,
Yeah.
growth,
Yeah.
and positive change.
I agree.
So as we conclude our deep dive into foremost clean energy,
Okay.
we encourage you to stay curious,
Yes.
stay informed,
To engage.
and stay engaged in the conversation about the future of energy.
Couldn't agree more.
Because the decisions we make today will shape the world we inherit tomorrow.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll bid you farewell for now.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration.
It's been a pleasure.
And we look forward to diving into more fascinating companies and ideas with you in the future.
Yeah, me too.
Until then, happy investing and stay curious.
Those tables are definitely useful
Right.
for understanding the potential upside,
Right.
but we can't just take them as gospel.
Yeah.
I mean, the uranium market is influenced by so many factors, from geopolitical events to technological advancements, that it's impossible to predict the future with certainty.
Right. Those tables are more like a sensitivity analysis.
Yeah.
Showing us how Foremost's financials could respond to different price scenarios.
Exactly.
They're not a crystal ball.
Nope.
But they do highlight the leverage that Foremost has to rising uranium prices.
They do.
If the market takes off,
Yeah.
they're well positioned to benefit significantly.
Yep.
So it all comes down to risk appetite,
It does that.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Investors who believe in the long-term prospects of the uranium market and are comfortable with the inherent risks of exploration stage companies
Right.
might see Foremost as an intriguing opportunity.
It's all about balancing those risks and potential rewards.
Right.
And that's where thorough research and due diligence come into play.
Yeah.
Investors need to look beyond the hype,
Right.
delve into the financials, assess the management team, and understand the market dynamics
Right.
before making any investment decisions.
I think we've done a pretty good job of unpacking those elements today.
Yeah, I think so too.
Wouldn't you say?
We've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
exploring the nuances of the uranium market, Foremost's strategic positioning,
Right.
their partnership with Denison Mines,
Yeah.
the potential impact of SMRs, and even their intriguing foray into the lithium space with the Zorro project.
We've also examined their financials,
We
including that going concern disclosure,
Yes.
which is always a red flag for investors.
It is.
But as we've discussed, it's not necessarily a deal breaker
Right.
for an exploration stage company like Foremost.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Foremost Clean Energy,
Okay.
let's distill all this information into some key takeaways for our listeners.
All right, let's do it.
So first, the uranium market is showing signs of resurgence,
Yes, it is.
driven by the growing demand for carbon-free energy
Mm-hmm.
and the emergence of SMRs as a viable alternative
Yeah.
to traditional nuclear power plants.
Right.
Second Foremost is strategically positioned to capitalize on this trend
They are.
with promising uranium properties in the Athabasca Basin
Yep.
and a strategic partnership with Denison Mines,
Absolutely.
a seasoned player in the uranium space.
That's right.
Third, while their financials do raise some concerns,
They do.
particularly that going concern disclosure,
Right.
they also have a price target
Mm-hmm.
that suggests potential upside. And let's not forget their experience in the lithium space,
Right.
which adds another layer of intrigue to their story.
It does.
It's a complex and evolving narrative.
It is.
And there's no easy answer to the question whether Foremost is a good investment.
Nope.
But hopefully our deep dive has provided you with the insights and the tools you need to make that determination for yourselves.
Absolutely. We've provided the context,
Yeah.
the analysis,
The nuance.
the nuanced details.
Right.
But ultimately, the decision is yours.
And as always, we encourage you to do your own research,
Yes.
consult with a financial advisor, and make informed decisions that align with your investment goals
Right.
and risk tolerance.
Of course.
Now, before we sign off,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought,
Right.
something to ponder as they navigate the complex and ever-changing world of investing.
I like it.
A thought that connects back to the broader themes we've explored today.
Okay.
The energy transition,
Yeah.
the role of innovation, and the importance of critical thinking.
Absolutely.
We've talked about uranium, lithium,
Yeah.
and the technologies they power,
Right.
electric vehicles,
Yeah.
clean energy grids, a future less reliant on fossil fuels.
Absolutely.
But these are just pieces of a much larger puzzle.
They are.
The clean energy transition is a multifaceted challenge.
It is.
That requires a holistic approach.
Absolutely.
It's not just about investing in the right companies or adopting the latest technologies.
Bigger than that.
It's about shifting our mindsets,
Right.
embracing sustainability,
Yeah.
and making conscious choices that align with a cleaner, more equitable future.
I like it.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in this transition.
We do.
Whether we're investors,
Yeah.
consumers,
Yeah.
policymakers, or simply concerned citizens.
For sure.
It's about understanding that the journey towards a sustainable future
Right.
will be filled with challenges and uncertainties,
Of course.
but also with opportunities for innovation,
Yeah.
growth, and positive change.
I agree.
So as we conclude our deep dive into foremost clean energy,
Okay.
we encourage you to stay curious,
Stay curious.
stay informed,
informed.
and stay engaged in the conversation about the future of energy.
Couldn't agree more.
Because the decisions we make today
Yeah.
will shape the world we inherit tomorrow.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll bid you farewell for now.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Thanks for having me.
And we look forward to diving into more fascinating companies and ideas with you in the future.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, happy investing
Happy investing.
and stay curious.
Stay curious.